Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to another video. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at slimline cards and I'm going to show you 3 different sizes of slimline cards you can create. We're going to have a little look at some of the mats and layers that you can create for those sizes, and we're also going to create some envelopes using the WRMK 123 punch board. So let's get started actually creating our card bases. So the cardstock that I'm using is a 300 GSM Hunky Dory cardstock. I'm using an A3 sheet. You don't need an A3 sheet to create these card bases. This is just what I'm using. So the first card I'm going to create is a mini slimline, and this measures 3.5 inch by 6 inch. So 3.5 inch is the width of the card, 6 inch is the height. So I need to cut my cardstock down to 7 inch and I'm going to score it at 3.5 inch. That is then going to give me my 3.5 inch width. I can then go ahead and cut this down 6 inch high, and that is going to give me my mini slimline card base. So I haven't used this mini slimline size card before, but I think it's really great. Maybe if you've got smaller stamps and die sets you want to use, but you want to use them on a smaller card, this is something just a little bit different. And I think it's going to be perfect for sort of thank you cards, like note cards. I think it'll be a really great size for those. So the next slimline size card we're going to create is actually my personal preference for creating slimline cards. I'm not sure if maybe this is the standard size. This is, just the size that I like to create. And this is 3.5 inch wide by 8.5 inch tall. So we're going to again cut a 7 inch and score at 3.5 inch, and then we're going to cut it down again to 8.5 inch. So I really love this size slimline card because I think it gives you the perfect amount of space to build things like scenes. It means then that you don't have lots of sky or lots of ground, everything's in proportion, and you don't have tons of space that you have to fill. So that is, let's say, our standard slimline size card. Now we can move on to the third one, which is going to be slightly bigger. And this one measures at 4 inches wide by 9 inches tall. And this is actually labelled as a DL size card, and you can get standard business envelopes to fit these cards. So to create this card base, we're going to cut it to 8 inch and score at 4 inch. Then we're going to trim it down again to be 9 inch tall. So this size card is going to be great if you still want to have that slimline size look. Maybe you've got a particular stamp or die that you want to use that's slightly bigger. If you want to create more of a scene, add more images, it just gives you a little bit more space. And again, it lets you add more mats and layers if that's the kind of look that you want to go for. So that's all 3 of our card bases are finished, and if we lay them next to each other, you can kind of see the small variation in these sizes. And it means then that you can pick the right card size for the particular project that you want to create. So now we've looked at creating our card bases, we can go ahead and take a look at creating some mats and layers for these particular sized cards. So for my mats and layers for these cards, I've come down in 1/4 inch increments. So here we've got our mini slimline card. The black mat and layer measures 3.25 by 5.75, and then the white is 3 inch by 5.5 inch. Then for our standard slimline, we've got our black mat is 3.25 inch by 8.25 inch, and then our white is 3 inch by 8 inch. And this will just give you a really nice small border and as much room then for you to create your main focal point of the card. Then for our last DL size card, our black mat is 3.75 inch by 8.75 inch, and our white mat is 3.5 inch by 8.5 inch. I personally think that adding mats and layers to your cards and projects really does make all the difference. It helps to focus in on the main part, but it also adds a little bit of depth and dimension and something a little bit more interesting. So now we've looked at the 3 sizes of slimline cards you can create. We've then created those card bases, and we've also created mats and layers for those cards as well. And now what we're going to do is move on to creating envelopes for these cards using the WRMK 123 punch board. So the first envelope that we're going to create is going to be for our slimline card, and don't forget this size is 3.5 by 6 inch. So using the size guide that's on the 123 punch board itself, to create an envelope that's going to fit our mini slimline card, we need to cut our cardstock down to 8 inch square. Out of the 3 envelopes that we're going to create for our slimline cards today, this is actually the only one that you can create an envelope from an A4 sheet of paper. Because the others need to be bigger than 8-inch squares to begin with, I had to use some 12 by 12 inch paper. So the cardstock that I'm using to create this envelope, this is from the Craft Perfect range by Tonic Studios. This is the mustard yellow, and because it's got that weaved pattern to it, I think it just makes the most elegant envelope. I really loved how this came out. It looked really fancy, and I also really love the colour. So in this video, I'm not going to walk you through how to create the envelopes themselves because I do have another video on my channel where I walk you through using this 1, 2, 3 punch board and actually creating the envelopes. So I'll pop a link in the corner for that video. If you want to know how to make the envelopes themselves, please go and check out that video. The one thing to remember when you're creating your envelopes on your punch board is that your envelopes are going to be created slightly bigger than your card. So you can see me putting this card in here, you've got some space along the top, you've got a little bit of space on the sides as well. So it's not going to be a snug fit. It means if you've got some dimension, if you've got layers, if you're using foam pads, you'll be able to fit your card size into that envelope. So regarding the other 2 envelopes that I created, I didn't actually realise until doing my voiceover that I hadn't actually captured any footage of me creating those envelopes. So you're going to look at a picture for a second just while I talk you through the other 2 envelopes. So for our standard size slimline card, which is 3.5 by 8.5 inch, we need to cut our cardstock down to 9 3/4 inch. So this is where I was saying that I needed to use a 12 by 12 inch sheet of cardstock because an A4 sheet of paper isn't big enough to create that envelope. So just keep that in mind. The only difference between creating my mini slimline envelope and the other 2 envelopes was that I had to trim the point off both of the flaps on the top and the bottom. This was because the flaps are actually too big for the width of the envelope itself. Hopefully that makes sense. You can kind of see that I've trimmed the top of those off. Again, if you are creating these envelopes, you will notice that yourself that you will need to trim these down. But for me personally, it really doesn't bother me. So now let's look at our DL size card. So unfortunately, you can't actually create an envelope for this card using this punch board. And that's because our punch board only goes up to card sizes of 8.5 inch. So it's half an inch too big. So I still wanted to show you this card size because it's still part of that slimline family, but you can just buy pre-made envelopes to fit this card size. However, there are 2 options. If you like the rough size of this card, there's 2 options for creating envelopes using your punch board. So the first option is to create an envelope like I have here. So this one will fit a card size of 4.5 inch by 8.5 inch. So for this card, you'll be altering this DL size by half an inch on the width and on the height. If you don't want to alter your card that much, the second option is to create an envelope to fit a card which is 4 inch by 8.5 inch. So you're only taking half an inch off the height, but you are keeping that slim width. So just because there isn't an envelope that will fit this DL size card doesn't mean that you can't create a card that is similar in size. This punch board is absolutely perfect for creating so many different sized envelopes, so you've got the freedom to create all the different kinds of cards that you want. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Maybe if you've never created a slimline card before, it might just inspire you just to give it a go, or maybe you create a particular size and now you want to try a different size. And there's also loads of products out there now that is specific for slimline card sizes. So you've got stamps and dies and stencils. So there really are creating products for this particular size, again, because it has become so popular. And if you do have the We Are Memory Keepers 1, 2, 3 punch board, or whether it's just the envelope punch board you've got, it's nice to know that you can create envelopes for those slimline sized cards, because myself, I have never bought a slimline envelope before. If ever I've needed to, I've just made one on my punch board. So that's really helpful to know. So if you did find the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and that notification bell will let you know when I've uploaded a next video. So thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.